order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and moment of silence. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, please have a seat. At this time, I ask all of you to please place your cell phones on vibrate or silent for the meeting. Roll call.
Karlovic.
Here.
Kramer. Here. Reichner.
Here.
Reese.
Here.
Heister.
I make a motion for the approval of minutes and reports for the fire department, the treasurer, engineer, code office, public works, redevelopment authority. A second.
Kramer. Yes. Karlovic.
Here. Yes.
Reichner.
Here.
Reese.
Yes.
Heister.
All right, an executive session was held on March 2nd, 2018 regarding a personnel matter. An executive session was held on March 6th for informational purposes only. An executive session was held prior to tonight's meeting to discuss litigation matters. All right, a topic concerning alcohol at the ice skating rink was added to tonight's agenda as well at the last minute. Is there any audience comment at this time for agenda items only? All right, at this time, Mr. Mike Fisher, please come forward. This is Mr. Mike Fisher, and he's in charge of overseeing our housing rehabilitation program, and he's here to inform the public and us about what the program actually offers.
Good evening, Council. I think what I'll do is I'll give you a general overview, since I know there's some new faces since the last time that we've been addressing Council. You are in the process of beginning to start up your fourth home grant that you received through the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development. These are federal funds that HUD administers, and then they block grant it down to DCED. And then they in turn administer the program in the Commonwealth on a competitive basis. This is our, as I said, fourth grant that we've been involved in with the city. We've started working with you back in 2004 with the first grant. And over that period of time, you've invested over $1.2 million in rehabilitating your housing stock in the city. It's focused exclusively on owner-occupied, and the individual that's receiving the grant has to be income eligible, and also they have to have their utilities and their taxes paid to date, or they can't be in arrears of those. We actually got this grant last year on your behalf. I think it was in the fall sometime. But I waited until now to come to present to you our professional service agreement, in part because I knew that there was going to be new council members and a new mayor. So I wanted to make sure that you folks had the opportunity to make sure that you had a comfort level moving the program forward, and also continuing with our services. We have, however, moved forward in good faith in starting this next phase up, in part because once the contract is provided to the city, you're under a time clock to complete the work in so many years. Originally, when we first started doing this, DCED gave the city and other grantees 5 years to complete the work. Now it's down to 3. So we're already about 6 months into the contract. What we've done to date is that we began the application process for the various people who are on the waiting list, and some have been waiting since 2013, homeowners. So we have, I believe, 6 applications in progress in terms of approving their income eligibility and the other criteria, and we've already approved 2 additional ones. And we're beginning to do the inspections and the work write-ups, and we've also completed the environmental review. at this point in terms of the general environmental review. We have to do environmental review each our property as well. But let me go into a brief explanation regarding our scope of services. But let me just stop there for a moment and ask if there's any questions.
Just one for, I'm
Yes.
legal counsel, so
Yes.
this is a grant that people have already, like, so homeowners have already applied for, and now we're just fulfilling what they applied for previously? Or is this giving new people an opportunity to also continue?
The first,
Okay.
we're going off the wait list, which has been a first come, first served. Now, if council in their next grant, if you want to continue with this program, if you want to look at a different process regarding the applications, we can sit down and discuss that. We are receiving phone calls on people that are in need of housing, so we just put them on the list, at the bottom of the list, and as they work their way up, then we're able to serve them. Right now, you do have a targeted area, and what that means is that 75% of the funds have been set aside for wards. I can't keep this stuff in my head anymore. Let me come back to that let me continue to talk here, because that's important. Okay, just kind of. Here it is. Okay, wards 2, 3, 4, and 9 are your current targeted areas for the new grant. So, our scope of services pretty much covers nuts to bolts, cradle to grave. We're doing essentially everything for you except for your fiscal bookkeeping and cutting the checks. Now, that's not to say that we'll continue to report to you on a monthly basis, and we'll meet with the mayor when it's necessary, or any other code office officials that need to be meeting with us as well, because there is some level of interfacing that we do have with your staff. But in respect to the grant application, we already did that. We submitted it, it's been approved, you have the contract has been submitted last year, it's been executed by the old mayor, and you have a fully executed contract now in place. We also do grant administration. What I mean by that is we take care of making sure that all the federal requirements are being successfully taken care of, which includes we are required each time we put something out to bid is that we reach out to certified minority business enterprise and women business enterprise, and we document the file to that extent. We also are involved with monthly, quarterly, semi-annual, and annual reports, which are voluminous in terms of what needs to be submitted to DCED. We also are involved with drawing down your funds through a computer system called IDIS. Now, you folks approve those invoices before you give us authorization to draw down those funds. And what I mean by that, each time a contractor does a house, they obviously have an invoice. We go out and we inspect the work to make sure that it was done according to the specifications and approve it, then we submit it to you, and then you authorize the payment, and then it gets drawn down through this electronic draw system. It's the same system that you use in the community development block grant funds. We also are involved with making sure that the environmental review is done, and which I mentioned earlier, it's already done, at least the phase or tier 1, which basically is a fairly comprehensive documentation and reporting and correspondence with any and almost all environmental agencies that might have any issue relative to the environmental impact of doing housing rehab in your city, which would include some that don't seem so obvious, like the Fish and Boat Commission, to some that do seem obvious, like DEP and EPA. And we then consolidate a pretty voluminous record, and we advertise in the paper that that's available to be reviewed by the general citizens and offer any comment, and then we present that record to the state, in which they finally give you environmental clearance. And in each project that we do, we also must document some environmental issues, like Does the house have lead-based paint? Does it have asbestos? Is there other activity going on, like is there a meth lab or any other type of legal thing that might have any obvious environmental impact to the property? So we consolidate all that information, and we have that information available for the general public to review, and more importantly, the environmental, the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development, they'll want to monitor your activity during the life of the contract that's open, and that means they'll come in and they'll look at our files, and they'll take a look at to make sure that the projects were done in accordance to the specification, that we've done the appropriate lead testing. We also provide the lead testing, in that we go in and we test each house for lead. We document whether there's lead there or not. If there isn't lead, then we're good to go. If there is lead, then we need to make sure that the work is being done in accordance to safe work practices. If the contractor's not going in there and just ripping and tearing and making the lead potentially worse. We do not necessarily abate and remove all the lead. We make the house a little bit more lead-free and reduce the risk of potential lead poisoning. We also educate the homeowner as it relates to the lead that may be contained in their house. We also do the application that I said earlier to make sure that the homeowner is eligible to receive these federal funds. And then we have a housing rehabilitation specialist who goes in and not only performs those lead tests that I talked about, but they also meet with the homeowner. They do a full house inspection, they identify the various code deficiencies. This is a program that we're reducing the code deficiencies and health and safety issues. It's not purely driven by beautification. We're not providing siding just for the sake of providing siding. We're providing siding if there's lead on that house, if we can afford to re-side it, or if that house has bad siding and it's letting the elements in their house, then we'll take a look at dealing with it, but it's just not a beautification. It's code driven for health and safety issues. We then do a work write-up. We review that with the homeowner, and the homeowner then approves that, and then we put it out to bid to your pre-approved contractors list. And then we award the contract. It's actually not a municipal contract. It's a two-party contract between the homeowner and the contractor. And you're not listed as a party in that contract, although you're spelled out in terms of you having the purse strings, if you will, in terms of controlling the funds. It also spells out our role in the process of reviewing the work and such. And then as the work proceeds, we inspect the work, we approve the payouts with the homeowner, we submit those payouts to you, and then hopefully at the end we have a completed house. We anticipate, given the amount of money that you have on this grant, which is $500,000, we anticipate probably doing anywhere between 8 and 15 homes. And why there's such a spread is during your last grant, halfway in between, the state imposed a new rule and regulation, which is the state prevailing wage. So any property that is estimated that's going to be over 25,000, we have to submit to the Pennsylvania Labor and Industry a request for a wage decision. And we've been seeing that those wage decisions have inflated projects anywhere from 30 to 60%, unfortunately. And the last council did respond to that, in that you increase the level of assistance, financial assistance that you're providing to the homeowner. It's now up to $50,000 for rehab and another $15,000 for lead, if there are wage rates that are triggered. If there's not wage rates triggered, then it's at 25 and 10. 25 for rehab and 10 for additional lead, which is what you held last time. That's another requirement that we have addressed in your agreement with us, in that we will be involved, CEDACOG will be responsible to do the wage monitoring to make sure that the contractors are paying the appropriate wage rates. We're gonna be monitoring the weekly payrolls that must be submitted. And that's a fee that we did not charge before because we just didn't have it. And last year, we had a number of projects in the city, we just ate that cost. We just wanted to wait until the grant finished up and you got your new grant, and now I'm here in front of you to outline the additional services that we're talking about. The other additional service that we have not charged you in the past, that we're currently having to do, that's relatively new, although we did it in most of your grant last year, but we already had a contract with you, and I just took the position and let's wait until we do a new contract, and that's radon. We have to test each house now for radon gas, and these are not our regulations, they're not the city's regulations, they are the federal government's regulations as it relates to this money. And unfortunately, we can't just go upstairs and get a radon test kit and stick it in the house. It has to be done by a licensed radon tester. So I have 2 staff members that have gone through the appropriate training and passed the test, and we have the appropriate license to do that. So that's pretty much in a very quick summary in terms of what your program's about and what we're proposing to you in terms of our services that we can provide to continue with the program.
If someone's interested in applying for this program, how do they go about doing it?
They can either contact our office or they can contact your office. Your town or your city clerk has a pre-application, which is just a 1-page, easy fill out yes or no, or is your income fall between here, do you and your house, yes or no? And that gets them pre-screened, and then it gets them on our list or your list. And then as we work through the next person on the top of the list, at that point we'll do a full application and we'll verify the income to make sure that what they're telling us is in fact their income. We have to go to the source. So if they're getting Social Security, we'll contact the Social Security Administration. If they're working at Weiss's, we'll have Weiss's give us their wages for the year. And same thing, we check to make sure that their taxes are not in arrears and their municipal utilities are paid up to date.
Now, how does it work? So someone applies for this and they meet the financial requirements, but because of being on the wait list, say they're on the wait list for a year and a half, and their financial status changes, do you recheck their financial status or?
Yeah, their income is only, and this changes, but I believe it's only good for 6 months. So if we would do the full application and then for whatever reason it gets delayed to finally go to bid and get a contract and it's been over 6 months, we would have to go back and unfortunately redo that. And that's been a problem in the past in that we reported to previous councils that, and the mayor, that we do have difficulty in getting enough contractors to participate, unfortunately. In the 2007 recession, we went from having more than enough contractors and being able to put these things out in the street on a regular basis, and these guys would just eat them up, to a lot of guys just closed up and went to go seek different career paths. So we have, unfortunately, some contractors that might have 5 or 6 jobs lined up that are ours, and it might take them 3 or 4 months or maybe longer to get to them. So whatever we can do, and whatever you guys can do to promote any people that you know that are contractors, steer them our way, and then we'll take a look to see if they're eligible. The eligibility is not really that bad. Obviously, we want to make sure that they're a legitimate contractor. So at the very minimum, they must be registered with the Attorney General. They also must have the HUD EPA lead safe work practices. And that is the law. I mean, anybody out there, whether they're doing private rehab or public rehab, they must be having that credentials behind them, and if they don't, and if they got caught, there's a fairly substantial costly penalty for that. We also are looking for contractors that have at least a minimum of $1 million liability insurance coverage, And then we also asked for 3 references that are doing the like work, and we do check those references to make sure that the references were happy with their work. And then we present that to you as council to approve any new contractors, because you may see someone on there that, okay, you might have gone through your screen, but we're familiar with that person, we really don't want them doing work in our city. So that's kind of the nutshell, and I understand that you reinstituted, or you are enforcing now a license for contractors? Okay.
Yeah, well, they need a state license if they're anyone residential. The state license would,
Through the, when you say state license, you're referring to the Attorney General's?
yeah,
Okay,
and they have to have that to do
Yes.
any residential work. If they do commercial work, then they need both, they need that plus one from the city.
okay, so our residential work, they wouldn't need a special permit from you?
You need a permit, they don't. need
I
a
mean,
license.
they'll need the building permit, they don't need the special, yeah, we spoke of special
If they have
license,
that state
okay.
license, that's all that's needed
Okay,
for residential.
Is there any requirement for how long they have to be in business? I mean, with the proof of insurance or anything like that?
no, we don't have that, and usually that, I guess you have to be a legitimate practitioner in order for somebody to underwrite you $1 million liability, so we kind of rely that as one of our tests to see if they're in fact potentially legitimate or not.
Does anybody else have any questions for?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight.
You're quite welcome.
All right, and at this time, I make a motion that, or I want to make sure, just so the public knows, we did have this contract for a month now, and each of us had a copy of it. I just want to make sure, has everybody read through the contract? Okay. At this time, I make a motion that we ratify the professional agreement for the housing rehabilitation program and authorize the mayor to sign the document.
I'll second it.
Reese,
Yes.
Eister, Karlovic,
Yes.
Kramer,
Yes.
Reichner,
Yes.
All right, Councilman Eister for the ice skating rink.
Oh, I'm trying to jump out there, but no problem. The, May date here, or 5th, Jim Starter having an activity up there, they want permission to serve wine and beer, having a little dinner for their judges up there, and I'd like to make a motion to allow that to happen on May the 5th.
Second it.
Reichner,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Eister,
Yes.
Karlovic.
I just want to ask a question before I say yes or no. Is there any security provisions being done because of underage people or?
Well, actually, this has been done before, but here again, you're absolutely right. It's up to them, the Jim Start people, okay, to monitor that. We don't personally bring in security, anything like that, no. Okay?
This is just a dinner for the, what do they call them, referees or?
Well, the judges for the.
Okay, this is an adult
This
event.
is contained.
Yeah, this is,
Okay.
It's
yes.
not to serve to the public, right?
No, this is
It's
for
just
Okay,
for
all right.
the judges.
Yes.
Kramer, yes.
Okay, thanks. Reichner,
Yes.
okay.
Councilman Eister on the 4th Street project.
Okay, the utility's been down there marking for the last week. I expect any time now, depending on the snow here, for the new contract to get started down there. And that's about it, nothing's really changed, other than I know the utility's been down there working some odds and then finishing up to get the project started on South 4th Street.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, there's a lot in the packet. We're just making sure that we're covering everything for this.
So I'll just do a quick update of the police department, where we're kind of at.
In the,
Yep, and I'll talk about both. So we had one meeting since the last council meeting. We talked more about the existing building, the options in there as far as how it could possibly be worked out. And there's some things we're waiting on to see what happens with that. outside things to see if that could work. We also had Gary Wolf, who's an architect in town, and he has done work on police stations. He brought in a couple blueprints for us and just showed some work that he's done on other stations, and just gave us some advice on if we're renovating, if we're building, and just kind of starting to put together those options. So we talked a lot about that, and he gave us a lot of good insight on that. And then also, I'll just quickly announce, I don't know, it's a little bit differently for street sweeping this year on how we've done it in the past. I know when I came in, there was some confusion, and people would ask me what week it is. We're just gonna stick to a date. April 1st is when street sweeping is gonna start, and as long as I'm here, that's the date that it's gonna start, and it's gonna go till November 30th. We pushed that back a little bit because it's been staying warmer longer. So we're gonna start April 1st, go to November 30th.
Are you still going to do the same streets?
Yep.
The same way?
Yep, nothing's gonna change with that. It's just that we're pushing the date back to start.
So then if you have 2 weeks in March, or the end, if it's really freezing, you're still gonna run the sweepers?
No, so it's,
So then it's not an exact date.
well, we're still gonna, that's the date that we're gonna start enforcing it. That way, if it is warm one day, this,
I just wanna know.
yeah, look at the last couple of weeks, we've had a 70 degree
Well,
and a
my point
40
is the
degree.
sweeper's not gonna run then, if it's freezing.
But we're still enforcing it. So that's, I guess, what I wanna make sure
That's my
people
point.
know.
So people are aware that they can get a ticket.
Yeah, we're just making sure they know what date to move the cars. Yep.
Are you going to ticket when they're not sweeping?
Yes, it's the date. The date that they're on is the date. that's
So
the-
when the street sweeper's broken and out of service for a month and they're not sweeping,
If
still
that
get
happens, we'll let you know. Yeah, I mean, we haven't had it with that. This is my first year with it. So if that happens, I'll let you know. And we'll take it a case by case situation. But yes, the dates that it's there, that's the dates that are taken.
And just to make this a little,
Captain Bennington, event.
Yeah, just currently what we're doing for last week and this week and the next week, we are hitting every house and handing people out notices of the sweeper. Todd's actually walking the sweeper routes and putting these on all the houses. Also, the city per se does not have a sweeping ordinance. We have a no parking ordinance. It's not sweeper, it's actually no parking. And it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 1 o'clock to 7 a.m., whatever streets they are. There's nothing in there about sweeping.
And that's year round too.
Is it?
I think
Absolutely,
last
it is.
year we talked about.
Could we enforce it year round? Yes, we could. We have not yet. We've
I-
talked about it, we discussed it.
I think there was discussion last year because of snow removal.
Right.
Wasn't there something like that?
I would love to see it year round because that way then his guys can work on the streets, they can paint lines, they can do all types of stuff. They can do snow removal, they can do whatever, but that's another discussion.
Yeah. Yeah.
sorry, give me a second.
That's my difference of this TAP resolution. This is the TAP resolution.
Alright, so I have it as the first subject of business. So I have that as right here.
Is there anybody here from the SRI to give an update? This is Councilman Ister for the CBS engineer.
No, how about the
TAP
tap?
resolution.
Yeah.
I'll take-
My agenda got messed up somehow
Yours-
tonight, I'm
yours looks
sorry.
different than ours.
Okay, back to the tap. And the tap is, there's a resolution for the tap, which is the grant we're having for Chester Street. We're at PennDOT and Montoursville today, and the reason we're doing this is speed the process. This is going to allow the mayor, after it's signed, authorize him to take and sign electronically The ECMS, which is otherwise the action of payment to reimbursement to the city of Sunbury. Cheryl Dell site will set the account up after we take and pass this, and that allows us to do that with, working with conjunction with PennDOT. I'd like to make a motion to allow you to sign it and also Cheryl to set the account up.
I'll second it.
Ister,
Yes.
Karlovic,
Yes.
Kramer,
Yes.
Reichner,
Yes.
Reese.
Yes.
All right, now Councilman Ister for Cease Engineering.
Yes, CES Engineering has an invoice of $4,497.93 for work done on the 4th Street. If there's no question, they have a motion to, or I made the motion, and need a second.
I have a question.
Yes,
Is that coming out of some grant that we already have?
I have to sit and talk to Kevin where he has money set around, but it's out of that project area, it's not out of the general budget.
I didn't think much, I just want to make sure.
Yes.
Yes.
Karlovic,
Yes.
Kramer,
Yes.
Reichner,
Yes.
Reese.
Yes.
Ister.
Yes. Next thing is hiring part-time employees that time of the year. We're gonna get started early this year, get a lot of maintenance work done. I'd just like to make a motion that I have the authority to start hiring some part-time workers in Parks and Recreation.
Second.
We have some applications in-house, and we'll be running an ad to take and get more applications in.
I'll second that.
Kramer,
Yes.
Reichner,
Yes.
Reese.
Yes.
Ister,
Yes.
Karlovic.
Yes. Approval to pay invoices, Councilwoman Kramer.
We have accounts payable bills of $134,167.01 from the general fund, and $14,507.10 from liquid fuel. I make a motion that we pay these
Second.
Reichner,
Yes.
Reese.
Yes.
Ister, Karlovic,
Yes.
Kramer.
Yes.
Just real quick, we pay all these bills, do we get what do we pay? Do we have a list of what we're paying?
The city treasurer's office, ma'am.
Okay.
Tax exoneration, Councilwoman Kramer.
We have 7 people on the list to be exonerated for paying taxes. Most of them are deceased. I'd like to make a motion that we exonerate
Second.
Reese.
Yes.
Ister,
Yes.
Karlovic.
Yes.
Kramer,
them. Yes.
Reichner.
Yes.
All right. Council members, the file that I place in front of you contains an overview list of vacant property registrations containing approximately 60 municipalities within Pennsylvania. There is also a copy of the list of vacant properties that I received from the municipal authority containing 129 properties. There's also a copy of the list of vacant properties that I received from the Sunbury Code Department containing 49 properties. There is also a copy of a vacant property registration ordinance that is currently passed and enacted